What is up, everybody? It's Animac here for Anime Uproar, and Deku is finally back at UA and facing off against Shigaraki's final form. The final battle of MHA begins now. One for all versus all for one. The most overpowered villain versus the most overpowered hero. And then, the greatest twist of all, Mirio's shocking super move. There is so much to talk about. This was a huge chapter, so let's get into it. You guys know how this works. If you enjoy our videos and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment right now. It only takes you a second, but it helps us with that YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you haven't subscribed already, make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. You might think that subscribing is not a big deal, after all it's free, but it actually means a lot on YouTube, so I would really appreciate it. Finally, this video will of course contain MHA manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. Now, in the previous chapter, Shigaraki noticed that he had actually been accumulating damage during this fight, and that Bakugo's new howitzer impact cluster seemed to have caused some lasting damage. This is certainly a big deal and a major accomplishment for the heroes under the circumstances, but we have to remember that all of this damage is only occurring because Shigaraki's quirks are currently being erased. As soon as he is able to use super regeneration, the damage will once again become a non-issue. At the end of the previous chapter, Shigaraki snapped under the realization that he was actually being hurt by the heroes, and he then proceeded to unleash a new power. A power that seemed to take his mutation ability to a whole new level. And as that chapter ended, we saw Shigaraki's hand mutations begin to transform into grotesque copies of his dead family members. The latest chapter begins with the explanation that Tomura Shigaraki's perfected body is about to morph into its optimal shape. As we know, even without being able to use his quirks, Shigaraki's body has continued to produce mutations all on its own. And this is what allowed Shigaraki to keep fighting the heroes, even as all his quirks are being erased by Monoma. These mutations, of course, are a result of his body literally changing due to the quirk's singularity. And in this chapter, Shigaraki's body finally evolves into its ultimate shape as Shigaraki unlocks his final form. The chapter narration confirms that Shigaraki was driven to the very brink by the heroes, and this is what triggered an even further evolution of his body. This is what initiated his apex form. This form is apparently perfectly crafted to deal with the threats that the heroes have been posing to him, and we see that his finger mutations are now covering his body in a way that makes them look like armor. I have to admit that this grotesque hand and finger armor does look kind of cool in its own creepy and bizarre way. Drop me a line down in the comments if you have an idea of what we should name Shigaraki's final form. Ultimate Shigaraki, Perfect Shigaraki, Apex Legend Shigaraki. Anyway, on top of these mutations now covering his body like armor, on his left arm, Shigaraki now has a giant mutated hand whose massive fingers are representations of his dead family members. You know, just in case you didn't think that his finger mutations were creepy enough already. Shigaraki then uses this giant left arm to just toss the heroes around like ragdolls, although ironically Ragdoll is not one of the heroes he tosses around. The heroes he does toss around are Miruko and the Big Three, and we can tell that they are all in pretty desperate shape. Even Genist is forced to leave Bakugo's side and enter the battle, but his fiber attacks are simply not strong enough to contain Shigaraki in his Apex Legend form. Poor Mirio is genuinely afraid that this is the end for him and for all of the other heroes here at UA. And he thinks back to the death of Sir Night-Eye and how much Sir Night-Eye believed in him and in his potential. Then, to make the situation even more difficult for the heroes, Mandalay informs everyone that they need to lift the electromagnetic barrier that is currently surrounding the UA for 2 seconds. Now, 2 seconds might not seem like a long time, but when someone is as strong and as fast as Shigaraki, 2 seconds could be the difference between success for the heroes and complete tragic failure. Within those 2 seconds, Shigaraki could easily escape his confinement within the UA grounds, and he could then go on to wreak absolute havoc on all of Japan. Lowering the barrier even for a moment is a huge risk. It could lead to the deaths of literally thousands of people. And so the already injured and desperate heroes have to find some way of distracting Shigaraki long enough for the barrier to be lifted and then raised again. Mirio doesn't know what he can possibly do to get Shigaraki's attention. Shigaraki is just so much stronger, and he isn't even bothering to look at Mirio, so what is Mirio supposed to do to distract this monster? Mirio suddenly remembers an important lesson that Sir Night-Eye had taught him. Sir Night-Eye told him to always keep smiling because a society without cheer and humor will not have a bright future. Heroes must be cheerful and fun because they are role models for everyone else, and in this moment, Mirio knows what he must do. Mirio prepares to activate his ultimate attack, the most powerful weapon in his arsenal. It's not his quirk, it's not his physical strength, it's not even his technique or strategy. No, Mirio calls out to Shigaraki and then he holds up his butt cheeks and tells Shigaraki to check out this peach. Shigaraki is so confused by this that he does actually lower his guard for a moment, and I mean, who can blame him? I think the entire universe was confused by this master stroke of a move. Literally no one was expecting this, and that is kind of the point. And then we finally learn the real reason why the electric barrier had to be lowered for those 2 seconds. Deku is finally here. Looking down on the battlefield from above like some green Japanese Spider-Man, Deku finally returns after like 6 months in real-world time. The chapter ends as Deku enters the UA grounds and confronts Shigaraki face to face. Ladies and gentlemen, Mirio's cheeks actually saved the day. Okay, I know that some people will not be happy with Mirio's peach scene because it is such a comical moment that feels like it probably doesn't belong in such a serious and consequential fight. But you know what? I actually liked it. I'm a big One Piece fan, and this is the type of thing that One Piece does kind of all the time, and Naruto does it as well, actually. So I think that when used in moderation, this type of stuff can actually work. I mean, it's funny, but it also makes sense, since Mirio really was desperate and he genuinely had no idea what to do in that moment. And what he did do was so insane and unexpected that it genuinely caught Shigaraki and everyone else by surprise. And that moment of surprise was all the time that Deku needed to enter the barrier. That was the whole point. Yes, it's a silly moment, but it's still way better than the edge shot stuff, especially the edge shot bubble incident from last chapter. So you know what, guys? I'm giving this a pass. Mirio's like one of the best things in MHA anyway, so let's just embrace the craziness. And speaking of craziness, our boy Deku has returned, and not a moment too soon. Apex legend Shigaraki was about to absolutely destroy all the heroes at UA. And once he got to Aizawa and Monoma, he would regain his ability to use all his quirks, and then the game really would have been over. Deku showing up now is the only thing that gives the heroes a chance to win. Although even with Deku, I don't know how much they can really do against Shigaraki's final form. I predict that Deku is about to unleash his final quirk very soon, because realistically speaking, Deku might be fresh because he wasn't fighting this whole time, but most of the other heroes on that battlefield are pretty much done. They are injured and worn out. And I mean, Bakugo literally died, at least clinically, before Edgeshot decided to wish him back to life with the dragon bubbles. Furthermore, Deku has never faced Shigaraki at this extreme level of power, so Deku will need a major power-up just to keep up. And the most obvious power-up will be to unleash his final quirk, and possibly his strongest quirk, the quirk that once belonged to the second user of One for All. And now, this is the million-dollar question. What will Deku's final quirk be? In the past, I talked about the possibility of it being related to time, like speeding up time or slowing it down or pausing it for a very short amount, or maybe even being able to increase the speed at which other things age. A time-based quirk would definitely be cool to see as part of One for All's arsenal. But now that we know how Shigaraki's crazy mutations work, maybe Deku's final quirk should be something that allows him to tear through all those mutations more easily, like some sort of blasting quirk. What do you guys think? What will Deku's final quirk be? And how will he use it in the fight against Shigaraki? Drop me a line down in the comments right now. Personally, I think that Deku unleashing his final quirk will be his next major power-up, but I don't think that this will be his final power-up. I think that eventually Deku will also reach some sort of quirk singularity, similar to what Shigaraki has gone through. And once that happens, all of Deku's quirks will blend into one single ultimate quirk. A quirk that might even end up mutating his body in order to allow his body to accommodate so much power. Again, not unlike what happened to Shigaraki. But that is just my own hypothesis. We'll have to wait and see what happens. By the way, we didn't get a direct explanation about the end of chapter 357 when Deku and the first user's vestige saw multiple flying objects coming towards them. But it seems clear that the flying objects coming towards him were members of Stars and Stripes' squadron who decided to stay in Japan and help the Japanese heroes fight the villains. It seems that they ended up giving Deku a ride on one of their jets in order to ensure that he makes it back on time, because we do see those jets up in the sky as Deku makes his epic return in this chapter. So what did you guys think of this chapter? Personally, I liked it, and it was much better than the last few chapters, that's for sure. And Mirio's cheeks did make me laugh, so again, like I said, I'll give it a pass. Let me know what you guys thought down below, and don't forget to leave a like and comment right now to help us out with that YouTube algorithm. If you haven't subscribed yet, make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. You really have to go through the trouble of hitting subscribe and then hitting that notification bell and selecting the option that says all. I know it's annoying, it's a bunch of steps, but if you don't do that, you're gonna still miss a ton of our videos. It's just how YouTube works. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at AnimeUproar. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.